Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from the Tech Architect channel. In this video I will be doing a book review for The Practice of Enterprise Architecture, a modern approach to business and IT alignment. So without any further ado, let's dive into this book. Of course, we are respecting the trademarks, and you will find this presentation available in both my website and also in SlideShare if you would like to download and look into the references it is mentioned in this presentation. Just for everyone knowledge why I am doing this book review, mainly for two purposes. The first one is to provide an objective feedback for a potential reader, someone like myself. Before purchasing any book, I need to see someone else's review and what is his opinion and whatever. So I am providing the same feedback about a very good book that I have read and I am sharing it with you. Second, I'm always providing a constructive feedback for the author so he can take some points into consideration when he is issuing the next edition of the book. I have purchased this book from ebooks.com and it is available also in Amazon and other platforms, but I prefer to purchase it from ebooks because it is having a good feature that it notifies you by email once there is a discount on any book in your wish list. That's why I think I managed to get it with around a 20% discount. And it is good to mention that this will be unbiased because this video is not sponsored and I have already purchased this book from my personal budget. Our author here, and I will use the name Slava, which I have already heard from when he was presenting in the British Computer Society in one of his videos. Because sorry, I cannot pronounce his name with all the respect for him, and I have got this picture from his official website, which I need to mention. This was one of the best personal websites that is providing a lot of information about a person and his research and paper, either in academic or which was really very important for me. And he is already identifying himself as in the LinkedIn as an enterprise architecture researcher. This book is based on the studies done by the author between the years of 2013 till 2018 for his PhD. So imagine you are reading a book that is based on an academic study. What will be you expecting? Some of people will expect that the book it will be boring, and I think I started changing my mind because I have read some very good papers lately. So I preferred, instead of asking the people, I will ask Bing, the new chat feature. And let's see what it has replied compared to the actual case of this book. First, yes, it is mentioned it is detailed and comprehensive, and this is the case exactly. It was expecting it will be written by a formal style like any thesis, but actually it is very friendly to the users while you will be reading. It is having, of course, a clear focus on the research problem, and 100% it was the case, and it was using precise word choice. And here for this point I will mention why I am mentioning here the sad face in the points I would like to see in the future editions. And of course it will be a cohesive and logically organized flow of ideas. The book, you will find it will be using a way, the analytical way, it is very persuasive to any reader, which is already can be a result from an academic background. Also, the book may include the author's research methodology as well as the analysis of their finding and conclusion, and 100% this was the case in the preface part of the book. Also, I would like to add as a summary, I find it, which was very strange for me, it is practical and realistic, and it is based on empirical studies, and also it is having a lot of references, and I will be talking in more details in the next few slides. The book is introducing a CSVLOD model for enterprise architecture, which is a new model for organizing the artifacts of enterprise architecture, and also providing a lot of information about the adoption and the challenges that you will be facing in any enterprise architecture journey. The CSVLOD model, it is actually based on two dimensions. What the artifacts describe, and the second is how the artifacts describe this from multiple angles. And let's break it one by one. What the artifacts describes, it is mainly three categories here. First, it is the rules of the organization, and second, it is the structure of your environment, and the third, it is the changes. And I will show you examples for every one of them. Changes, it is like a project structure, it is like the high level outline or the high level architecture for the organization, and of course the governance rules and the policies for the organization. Of course, as the enterprise architect, he is always into communication with the business users, the C-level, EVP, or whatever. That's why the language when you are talking to the business, it is 100% different than when you are talking to IT team members in any project. And of course, the artifacts, it is also different. And here comes the CSVLOD for the enterprise architecture. Actually, it is an abbreviation, the C for considerations, S for standards, V for visions, and L for landscapes, O for outlines, and D for designs. In the incoming few slides, I will show you examples that has been mentioned in the book for every type of artifact that you can see here in this model. The first one, which is the consideration. The consideration, and you will find all of this, it is available from the author website, and here I am referring to version 1.4 because actually version 2, I think it has been published from a few months back, and it might be used in the new edition from the book. And so you can download also, of course, this one. And here I focused while I am getting examples from every part from this artifact, that I am only getting the essential and common. You will find this color, which is, it is having dark gray or black, or here light gray and sometimes white. It is denoting how common the author found these artifacts are used in organizations. So here, which is very common, and here it is from business perspective, the principles and the policies. Where you will find something like this, it is like the regulation of the main enterprise that you are doing the enterprise architecture for. Let's imagine you are having an insurance company. This insurance company, 100% there is a regulations that it needs to adhere, and there are some principles and policies that they govern the whole operation of this insurance company. And this is the way it is mentioned normally the author found. Okay, and of course this is targeting for the business part. Similar to these rules, there are another, the second one, which is for S for standards. This is mainly targeted for the IT, and here we are having much more comprehensive artifacts that is presented to the IT. First, there will be some guidelines, technology reference model, IT principles and patterns. And let's navigate every artifact type one by one. This guideline usually something like an example, server deployment standards run application as OS services. This you will find that it is like a guidelines in any IT operation. Avoid using UDP multicast, and you will find most of the communication and protocols they prefer TCP/IP, prefer REST over SOAP based on a lot of reasons. That's why these are all guidelines for the IT persons. Technology reference model, here you will find the way of delivery or channel or operation, the number of database supported, which you will find most of the organization they prefer minimum to support 2 type of technology, let's say on the level of database or level of application server or level of technology, in order to make sure they are not having a lot of distraction and a lot of people to do the support for this organization. And of course here there will be a set of principles you will need to adhere to. Log all main operation, use scalable resources, and here on various levels. And as you can see from here, the IT principles here, it is mainly focused on 5 areas, and they are leaving maybe the 6th area, which is the business, for the business part. And of course, if an organization it is much organized and it has published their approved patterns in order to speed up the delivery, they will mention what are the patterns that are used and why they are using these patterns and so ever. Next, we are proceeding to the visions, and here is the vision. Again, this is from business perspective. They will be using one of these, or actually multiple, based on the organization business capability models. Here let's say that you are already having the business strategy, what are the core what are the goals of the organization, its capability, and what is the required capability for every goal or for every project based on the organization. And of course sometimes they are using some heat map in order to denote if it is already missing or strategic, or we need to cover this capability, and who are the people who are performing it. And of course any or measure of the organization, they are having a roadmap based on the strategy for 2, 3, and very common to have between 3 and 5. And I don't think there is a strategy more than 10 years as of now, because of the nature of the changes along the whole world. So here we are having the current state, the systems or whatever, multiple initiatives along this year, and what is the expected future state after these years of investment. And here the target states from, again, business perspective. Yani let's say that we are already having multiple projects, and I want to have my group of customers, let's say my customers, my merchants or whatever, they will be allowed to access our system from whatever channels or whatever. So I am having this also in the target states. And again, all of this, it is mentioned that is related to the business. That's why you will find here the diagrams are very, very simple and anyone can read it. Second, which is corresponding to the visions, it is called landscapes. The landscapes, it is mainly for the IT. Something like the landscape diagrams. From here, this is called the application landscape. And even in some organization, you might find this diagram repeated, one for the infrastructure, another one for the data, someone for another one for the information security and whatever, which is actually very, very common in most of the organization. And sometimes you can have the as is and the to be as well. Here, second, you will be having the inventory of, let's say, your application, of your servers or whatever, and usually it is presented in tabular form. Sometimes in some other EA frameworks, they are mentioning it is called like catalogs. Okay. And here we are having enterprise system portfolios, where they are mapping the capabilities that is required from the business, how it is fulfilled across multiple applications here in the organization. And if I can use the heat map, and here you can see from the legacy, active, and strategic. By the way, the heat map, it will be based on your scenario and situation, and usually when you are using an enterprise architecture tool, you can have multiple heat maps based on multiple attributes for the same system itself. And here, which is very, very common as well, and here this is called the IT roadmaps. It is similar to the business, but it is mainly focused on the IT stuff, either from the 6 domain or 5 domains: application, data, infrastructure, integration, and networking. We'll continue with the outlines. The outlines, it is here also from the business perspective. Here you will see, usually when you are planning to do a purchase in order to achieve some vision, and here we are focusing on the projects. Usually there will be a decision like if we are going to purchase, if we are going to outsource, if we are going to build, or a lot of options that is being done before you pick the the right approach in tackling the business or IT initiatives. So usually you are having some sort of options assessment, whatever the name of your organization. So you are having high level of the solution, and if you are having some scoring for it, what will be the pros and the cons for everyone, or whatever. This is called option assessment. And sometimes you will find also here solution overview. Solution overview, it is like an initial, and actually this is again from business perspective. Usually it is having the high level of the business requirement, how it will be achieved, because actually whenever you are using a graphical notation while you are having or you are doing presentation either to the business or to some potential vendors, and based on the discussion, this represent a very good start if you are issuing an RFP or whatever for your requirements or your business initiatives. The last one, which is the designs, and the designs here, it is mainly focused on the IT, and usually it is being done on the course of implementation of the initiative itself. And here we are talking about a detailed or in some organizations they are calling it the high level design. Some of them they are reaching and they are having references to low level design. If you are coming from a solution architecture background, you will find the name, it is solution architecture document. Whatever the name of the document, it will be having what is the brief overview about the project, what is the business capabilities, what is the data application and infrastructure, various information regarding the design of the project itself. The book is having a lot of other chapters tackling a lot of informations and situation as an enterprise architect you will be facing on a daily basis. But here let me tell you what I really liked about this second edition of the book. First of all, it is the clarity of being able to communicate a complex topic like an enterprise architecture in a simple way. If you compare it to any known enterprise architecture framework, you will find it is actually very simple for anyone who is reading. And it is using very simple style in communicating the information. Also, the diagrams, they are considered from my side actually as a monochrome art pieces. I really appreciate the value and the effort that the author has put in while he was drawing such diagrams, and the very simple notation that he has used, because they are very informative and comprehensive and reusable. And here when I am mentioning reusable, imagine while you are reading a book, I did not reach even half of the book at this point of time, and started getting some of the diagrams in my daily presentation in my work. That's why I find this were very helpful. And from the monochrome here, it will, if you read books on Kindle, I think it will be rendered very good. And also if you are using the Kindle for the PC like what I am using as of now. The book is having a lots of references, and to be exactly this second edition, it is having more than 600 references, a huge number. And I found lots of them are very interesting, and they are having so much information and provide both quantitative and qualitative evidence about a specific topic. While as I was reading a book, that's why it took a longer time. When the author was mentioning a specific statement, and I want to make sure from it or how he is, because he is mentioning this is as a fact. I do not know what is this fact, and based on what I was going to the reference that is mentioned in the book. And I start reading and I find a lot of information, and even I have discovered a very good websites that is providing a lot of information about enterprise architecture that I did not knew about before reading this book. And here what I like really about the author, that he is always updating, and it is actually work in progress. The EA artifacts, they are increased. In this book, it was 24 type of artifacts in this version 1.x, or actually 1.4, and they have increased in to version to when he is published enterprise architecture on a page version 2 to 28 type of artifacts. And I have seen this because if you are following the author from his LinkedIn, and I'm recommending you also to follow him for any updates or whatever, so the author is on a continuous effort in enhancing his work, which is really very appreciated. In many situations, and I found the author, he is like a fortune teller. And I found some examples, they are really, I have passed by my life during my working experience and whatever, and in many situations I find I was getting some quotes of the book, and I passing it to some of my architecture friends and telling them, what does this example remind you of, which project or whatever. And that's why the most important, and I think what I really liked about this book, it is based on practical examples and the empirical studies the author has done with a lot of companies. Also, that's why I found it is a very realistic, practical, and based on empirical studies rather than theoretical. And for full details of the studies, sorry, I will not be able to copy anything, of course, from the book because it is copyrighted, but this will be a reference that it is already public available. The author has done it. It is called Enterprise Architecture and Enterprise Architecture Artifact, questioning the old concept in light of the new findings. This link, and if you are going to table number 1 in whatever pages mentioned here, you will find for every artifact he mentioned when he was doing this sampling from these companies or whatever, what is the percentage of finding this information, and what was the purpose of every artifact he has already introduced. This paper was very, very good, and it will tell you how much is the effort the author has put into his studies, and why he has been using the essential, common, uncommon when he is putting a mark on every artifact in whatever the 24 or the 28. In chapter 5, due to problems with business strategy, and by the way, this is a very common issue in a lot of organizations, the strategy or the business strategy, it is not publicly announced and it is not available for everyone. I really like this chapter because the author promoted a middle ground between the business and the IT to use if you are facing the same challenge and the strategy is not well published. First, to agree on the operating model and the explanation there, it was really very, very good, and it will help any enterprise architect in his journey. Second, business capabilities, specific business needs, business process, business requirement, all of these 5 main points, it is already discussed thoroughly in chapter 5, and you will find how you can build or you can determine the IT strategy from these points rather than the business strategy if it is not clear and communicated with everyone in the organization. And the author, he is promoting the concept of there is no one size fits all. The whole idea is sometimes I find some enterprise architects, they are very rigid about the way they want the organization to follow. But the author is not like this at all. He is always giving you options and how things should be done in an enterprise architecture based on your situation. And as an example here, I am mentioning in chapter 17, which is the architecture function in an organization. Anyhow, the architecture, enterprise architecture, of course, its function in the organization. Here, the first, he has given so many options based on the size of organization. 100% an organization with hundreds of employees, not like with thousands of employees or whatever. Based the structure based on the degree of decentralization. And also he has put the structure of the governors committee in different organization. Even he may already mentioned cases if you are in organization which is multinational and it is operating from multiple countries and whatever. All of this, it is already in this second edition, and actually not only chapter 17, a lot of other chapters, it is promoting the same concept. There is no one size fits all. Here I will mention what I would like to see in the next edition. First of all, a simpler English. Yes, as Bing mentioned, the words are very carefully picked, but I found them as a non-native English speaker, they were hard, and sometimes, a lot of times, I require a translator. And I think I can help in this part because I have already collected all the words that I needed to do for translation, because there is some feature in Kindle you can export the highlighted words and whatever. So I used it and I prepared the list of all the words that I require the translator, and I can exchange it with the author after I publish this video. The second edition preface to use less or fewer confrontational messages with criticism. 100% imagine yourself, you are a researcher in an enterprise architecture field and you are coming with a model or a framework that is actually simpler than very matured frameworks in the enterprise architecture. What is expected? You will be expected, a lot of people will be against this, and 100% you will receive a lot of criticism as an author. But actually you have done a very good job. Simply don't care about this part and just ignore this criticism if you do not find they are really very constructive, because you have done a very good job, and I think you do not need someone to tell you you have done a very good job in writing this book. Why I am mentioning this point? Because it was having two effects on me. The first effect, I thought I purchased the wrong book, because if everyone is mentioning and having all this criticism, what will happen? Did I really purchase? And by the way, the book, I think it was, at this point of time, it was having a rating 4.6 in Amazon.com. Okay, this is the first part. Second, I postponed reading the book, I think, for 2 months, and I started reading some other book. So, in my opinion, I think if the author can use less confrontational messages, it will be far better, especially because once you pause the second edition preface and you go to the first edition preface, it was very, very nice, and it was showing in very objective way the effort that has been done during preparation of this book and whatever. That's why this will be my advice to the author here. Third one, if the book can have a simple business case from end to end, where various artifacts can be presented in more details, not only just a simple diagram, it will be of course great. Or it can be provided as an accompanied online resource to keep the book length reasonable. Actually, the book till now, it is around 570 pages. Having this business case, especially for enterprise architects who are new to the field, they will need to see some examples. It was not a big issue for me, because this is actually my daily work in most of the cases, and I have been in this field for the past 10 years. But for someone who is new to the enterprise architecture, I think he needs to get this more detailed information about the artifacts. Chapter 13. In chapter 13, there was an interaction between the enterprise architecture processes with other processes and frameworks, like the PMO, portfolio, demand procurement, SDLC, audit data governance. There are a lot. I hope they can be converted into a graphical representation. While I was reading chapter 13, it was having very lengthy but accurate information about how the EA processes interact with other processes. But it is very lengthy and in text based. Again, if I am new to the enterprise architecture, I will find this does not make sense, or I at least need some simpler way to express the intersection of these processes. And why I am mentioning especially this point, because maybe from my point of view, the interaction between the EA processes with other processes, and there are so many processes in any organization, it is one of the major challenges for any enterprise architecture office in any organization. Chapter 14, which is mainly related to the design, which is the technical, it was mentioning the key design decisions, KDDs. Okay, and they are mentioned. Usually you will find that the author, he is already putting multiple artifacts, and then even he is mentioning less popular artifacts, something like the key design decisions. From my point of view, in the section of the designs, I think it needs to be added, although they are classified as less popular. Maybe if you did not find in your studies and in your while you are doing checking of multiple organization, you can mention they are uncommon. Why I am mentioning this? Because there is currently a term that has been very popular during the last years. It is called ADR, which is nearly the same as KDD. ADR stands for Architecture Design Decision Register, and it is promoted from most important architects around the world, like Mark Richards, Neil Ford, and in many books. And even if you are following with O'Reilly Kata, that has been, I think, 3 or 4 times now, no team will pass this kata without having a clear architecture decision register. I think it is very important for any enterprise architecture office, even because you need to mention that this decision and what was the alternative, what was the consequences, and a lot of stuff and a lot of templates. They are very, very common. Just search about ADR templates and you will find many there. I have read one of the British computer science articles that is published also by the author, which is called A Comparison of the Top 4 Enterprise Architecture Frameworks. I would like to see if he can add an appendix, because we are already having 2 appendix in the book, to have a third appendix having the comparison between these top 4 enterprise architecture framework and the CSVLOD framework, to have something that is actually comprehensive. I think it will be very, very good and important. My final recommendation here, of course, this book, it is the target audience. They are the enterprise architects, of course, and I think anyone who is establishing enterprise architecture practice, to start with the pieces of advice mentioned in chapter 19, the life cycle of enterprise architecture practice. You don't imagine, I was very pleased when I was reading this chapter 19, because it was suggested from the author. It was based on it is like a conversation I have done with a very senior enterprise architect. I was trying to convince him to gradually highlight the benefits of the enterprise architecture in the organization, rather than the normal traditional way of establishing an enterprise architect. And I think this is exactly the case that was presented by the author, and I think it will work in any organization. If you are already practicing enterprise architecture, reading this book will give you multiple ideas to resolve your daily issues you are facing. And I think, yani, even if you are using, let's say, TOGAF or Zachman or whatever, any framework, you can even benefit when reading this book because it will give you some options rather than whatever you are using in your daily work, and you can explore some new ideas. In my humble opinion, yani, the book is already in around 19 chapters, and it is having Appendix A and Appendix B. Appendix A, I find it was actually very critical. And the information that is mentioned in Appendix A, it is very important for any reader. Because from my working experience in the IT fields for more than 20 years now, I find that understanding the fundamentals and the history, it will give you a lot of explanation about the state we are having as of today. And this is exactly what is covered in Appendix A. It will tell you the starting journey of enterprise architecture along with all the frameworks that has been introduced, all the companies, the consultancy, and doing whatever. And it is ending with very important conclusion at the end of Appendix A that I think you must read. It is not an option. That's why my recommendation is after you read from chapter 3, you go to read Appendix A and then return back to chapter 4. Here there are some references I already went through. Of course, the first one, it is a thesis. It is already public available for our author. Second, it's a very good, detailed and comprehensive. It might be rather old from the author himself to the British Computer Society. It is having a webinar. Second, a more recent, the third here, it is a more recent, but I think the voice, it was not that much clear. And here, if you know already German, there is a professor in Professor Tel Albert from his YouTube channel. He already have a complete playlist for the enterprise architecture management that is based on the CSVLOD, which is very common, but of course I found it is all mentioned in German. And here, which is a very good article from our author, a comparison of the top 4 enterprise architecture frameworks. Thanks for your time, and I hope I have done a good job in doing this book review. If you find it is beneficial, please hit the like button, and of course share it with any of your enterprise architecture team members, and really I appreciate your time. Thanks.